Cain smirked. "You can try." The signal was given, and the duel began. Rithos moved first, his speed unnatural, his fist striking forward like a hammer. Any normal human would have been crushed in that instant. But Cain was already moving. He sidestepped effortlessly, the blow missing by inches. Before Rithos could react, Cain's counterattack came, a swift, precise strike to the side, just beneath the armor plating. Rithos staggered slightly, caught off guard. Silara's eyes narrowed. Cain wasn't just strong, he was calculating. Rithos roared and attacked again, faster this time. But Cain was adapting, dodging with perfect timing. His movements were not wild or desperate like other species in battle. They were measured, efficient. Every attack he threw was meant to break through defenses, to exploit weaknesses. And then, in a single moment, it happened. Cain dropped low, swept Rithos' legs out from under him, and sent the massive warrior crashing to the ground. In the stunned silence that followed, Cain pressed his knee against Rithos' chest, pinning him down. The fight was over. Silara had never seen a non-Vexari defeat a trained warrior so quickly. Cain stood up and stepped back, offering a hand to Rithos. The commander hesitated for a moment, then took it. There was no arrogance in Cain's victory, no gloating, only respect. Silara finally understood. Humans did not rely on brute strength like other species. They relied on adaptability, experience, and something even more dangerous, sheer willpower. The crowd was silent, unsure of what to say. And then, to Silara's surprise, Rithos let out a low, grudging laugh. "You fight well, human," he admitted. Cain shrugged. "I get a lot of practice." Silara stepped forward, her violet eyes studying him carefully. "You have proven that humans are capable warriors." Cain met her gaze, still calm. Was there ever any doubt? Silara did not answer, because, deep inside, she knew the truth. There had been doubt. The combat arena still hummed with the echoes of the battle. The Vexari spectators had expected an easy victory for Commander Rithos, yet they had witnessed something far more shocking. A human, a species known for their short lifespans and lack of advanced evolution, had won. Princess Silara observed Sergeant Darius Cain carefully as he stepped off the battle platform. He showed no signs of exhaustion, no arrogance, no celebration. He simply accepted the victory as if it was expected. That more than anything unsettled her. He knew he would win. Vexari warriors were larger, faster, and physically superior to humans in almost every way. And yet Cain had not only kept up, he had dominated the fight. How? She needed answers. "Sergeant Cain," Silara called, stepping forward. The gathered warriors fell silent as she approached. "Your performance was surprising." Cain turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "I'll take that as a compliment." Silara tilted her head. "Do all humans fight like this, with such precision?" Cain's lips twitched slightly, almost as if he found the question amusing. "Not all, but the best ones do." Her gaze lingered on him. There was something in his voice, something deeper than just confidence. He was not boasting, not exaggerating. He was simply stating a fact. Silara decided to test him further. "You fought well, but a single duel is not enough to prove true strength," she said. "Perhaps another challenge is in order." Cain folded his arms, raising an eyebrow. "You're not satisfied." She took a step closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "I still do not understand you, human. You are different." Cain met her gaze without hesitation. Humans are always full of surprises. Silara narrowed her eyes. A warrior's trial was one thing. But true strength wasn't just about fighting. It was about endurance, resilience. The real test was something else entirely. She turned to one of her royal guards. "Prepare the gauntlet." Gasps rippled through the gathered Vexari. Cain, however, simply looked curious. "The gauntlet?" Silara allowed a small, mysterious smile. It is a test of endurance, designed to push warriors to their limits. Kane's smirk returned. Sounds fun. The gauntlet begins. Hours later, Kane stood at the entrance of the gauntlet, a long, winding corridor filled with physical and mental challenges. Few warriors ever completed it. It was designed to expose weakness. Silara and several Vexari officials stood on a high balcony, watching. Kane cracked his knuckles and took a breath. Start the trial, Silara commanded. The first section was a gravity shift zone. The moment Kane stepped in, the air grew heavy. Vexari warriors trained under these conditions for years to handle extreme pressure. Kane. He kept walking. Silara leaned forward slightly. Most beings struggled at this stage. Kane wasn't even slowing down. The second challenge activated. A moving platform that shifted beneath his feet while robotic arms swung at him from all directions. Kane dodged, twisted, countered each attack with terrifying efficiency. His adaptability was unnatural. This is not normal, one of the Vexari nobles whispered. Silara said nothing. She had studied human history. They had survived wars, disasters, impossible odds, and kept fighting. But seeing it in person was different. The third section of the gauntlet was the hardest, the endurance zone. Kane had to push through an energy field that drained strength from the body. Vexari warriors often collapsed here. Kane kept moving. His steps slowed, sweat dripped from his brow, but his jaw clenched, and he refused to stop. Unbelievable. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he emerged from the gauntlet, breathing heavily but standing tall. He had passed. The Vexari nobles whispered among themselves, shocked. Silara descended from the balcony, stepping toward him. For the first time in her life, she felt something strange toward a warrior of another species. Not pity, not superiority, but admiration. You endured the gauntlet, she said. Impressive. Kane smirked despite his exhaustion. Told you. Humans don't give up. Silara hesitated for a moment. Then she extended her hand, an unheard-of gesture for a Vexari royal. Kane looked at it, then grasped her wrist in the traditional warrior's handshake. For the first time, Silara understood why the universe feared humans. Because they never stopped fighting. The gauntlet had been conquered. The once skeptical Vexari nobles had witnessed something they had never seen before. A human, a species considered physically inferior, had completed one of the Dominion's most grueling trials. Sergeant Darius Kane stood at the center of the chamber, his breathing steady despite the strain. His uniform was drenched in sweat, his muscles tense, but his posture remained unshaken. Princess Silara studied him carefully. He should have collapsed. Even the strongest Vexari warriors emerged from the gauntlet barely able to stand. And yet, Kane remained upright, his dark eyes sharp, his confidence unbroken. How are you still standing? One of the Vexari nobles asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Kane exhaled, rolling his shoulders. I've had worse. Murmurs spread across the chamber. Silara raised a hand, silencing them. She stepped closer to Kane, her violet eyes filled with curiosity. Your species is unusual. Kane smirked. I'll take that as a compliment. Silara narrowed her gaze. Most warriors fight until their bodies fail. You fight even when your body should fail. Why? Kane's smirk faded slightly. His expression became something deeper, something unreadable. He glanced around the chamber, as if considering his words carefully. Then he answered, because giving up means death, he said simply. The room fell silent. Silara felt a chill run through her. The way he had spoken, without emotion, without hesitation, it was not just a statement. It was a truth. Humans were not stronger. They were not faster. But they refused to die. And that made them dangerous. She had read reports of human wars. She had studied their history, but no amount of research could compare to witnessing it firsthand. Kane had no genetic enhancements, no biological advantages, but his willpower was unbreakable. The slow realization settled over her. This is why humanity was rising so quickly. This is why the Vexari Dominion feared them. Silara took a step closer, lowering her voice so that only Cain could hear. If the Dominion cannot break you, then how can we control your kind? Cain's lips twitched, but his eyes remained serious. Maybe that's the problem. You're too busy trying to control us instead of working with us. Silara stared at him. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not a noble, not a warrior, not anyone. And yet, she did not feel insulted. She felt intrigued. She turned to the gathered nobles. The trial is over. The human has proven himself. One of the nobles stepped forward, his golden eyes filled with discontent. Princess, surely you do not mean to. I mean exactly what I said. Silara interrupted, her voice firm. The human has passed our tests. He has earned the right to be treated as an equal. The noble hesitated, then gave a reluctant bow. As you command, Princess. Silara turned back to Cain. It seems you are full of surprises, Sergeant. Cain gave a small shrug. It's what we do best. Silara exhaled softly. For the first time since their meeting, she did not see Cain as just a soldier. She saw him as a symbol of humanity itself, a force that could not be bent or broken. And for the first time she wondered, what if humanity was not meant to be ruled, but to stand beside them? The tension in the chamber slowly faded, but the weight of what had just happened still lingered in the air. Princess Silara had declared Sergeant Darius Cain an equal, something unheard of in Vexari traditions. No outsider had ever completed the gauntlet and earned such recognition. Cain, however, did not seem concerned with the politics of it all. He stood calm, hands resting casually at his sides, as if enduring deadly trials was just another part of his daily routine. Silara found herself watching him more closely than before. She had seen warriors win battles with brute strength. She had seen nobles manipulate with cunning words. But Cain had done something different. He had won with sheer willpower. He had fought, endured, and stood unbroken. Not for power, not for glory, but because failure was never an option for him. It was a trait the Vexari did not fully understand. And now she wanted to. A change in perspective. As the nobles left the chamber, whispering among themselves, Silara motioned for Cain to follow her. He hesitated for a brief moment, but then shrugged and walked beside her. They stepped into a quiet corridor where the noise of the crowd faded. The walls were adorned with the golden banners of the Dominion, representing centuries of Vexari rule. Silara finally spoke. I need to understand something, Sergeant Cain. He glanced at her. All right. She stopped walking and turned to face him. Your people, your resilience. I have studied your history, read reports about your kind, but none of it explains what I saw today. Cain crossed his arms. What exactly do you want to know? Silara's gaze sharpened. What drives you? Why do humans fight the way they do? It is not just survival. It is something more. Cain was silent for a moment. Then his expression grew thoughtful. You ever hear of Earth's early explorers? He asked. Silara frowned slightly. I have read of your planet's history, but explain. Cain leaned against the wall, his posture relaxed, but his voice steady. Humans have always pushed into the unknown. We've sailed across deadly oceans, climbed impossible mountains, stepped onto moons and planets no one thought we could reach. We take risks, and we adapt. That's just what we do. Silara considered his words. But why? Why risk so much? Cain's gaze met hers, and for the first time, there was something almost unguarded in his expression. Because we refuse to be trapped. Silara blinked. Trapped. Cain nodded. By fear, by limits, by anyone or anything trying to tell us what we can or can't do. The moment we stop pushing forward is the moment we stop being human. His words unsettled something inside her. The Vexari Dominion was built on order, hierarchy, control. Everything had its place. Every species had a role. But humans, they refused to be placed in a box. They refused to be ruled. And that was why the Dominion feared them. Silara took a slow breath. So you fight not because you must, but because it is in your nature. Cain smirked. Pretty much. Silara studied him for a long moment. Then she made a decision. I want to see more, she said. Cain raised an eyebrow. More? She nodded. I have seen you in battle, seen you endure trials. But I wish to understand your people, your world, through my own eyes, not just through reports or data. Cain tilted his head slightly. Are you saying you want to visit Earth? Silara hesitated. The idea was dangerous. A Vexeri princess, traveling to the heart of human territory. It would be seen as reckless, maybe even treasonous. And yet, she had always believed the Dominion was the strongest civilization in the galaxy, that their way was the only way. But now, for the first time, she wasn't sure. I am saying, she said carefully, that perhaps the Dominion has underestimated humanity, and I intend to find out why. Cain chuckled. Well, princess, if you really want to see how humans live, I hope you're ready for a wild ride. Silara raised an eyebrow. I do not fear the unknown, Sergeant. Cain's smirk widened. Good, because humans, we thrive in it. For the first time, Silara did not see a rival, a soldier, or even just a human. She saw something far more dangerous, a force that could change the galaxy itself. And she was ready to see just how far that force could go. The Vexeri Royal Shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, its sleek golden hull reflecting the light of a distant sun. Inside, Princess Silara stood near the viewing window, her sharp violet eyes studying the planet below. This world was nothing like the perfectly structured cities of the Dominion. Earth was wild, unpredictable, chaotic, a mix of towering skyscrapers, sprawling green landscapes, and vast oceans stretching into the horizon. And yet, there was life everywhere. Humans had not just survived here. They had thrived. She felt an unexpected sense of anticipation. For the first time in her life, she was stepping into the unknown. Beside her, Sergeant Darius Cain smirked. Welcome to Earth, Princess. Try not to look too impressed. Silara raised an eyebrow. I was expecting more. Order. Cain chuckled. Yeah, we don't do order very well. But that's what makes us fun. Silara said nothing, but she was beginning to understand. Humans did not seek perfection. They embraced chaos and shaped it into something greater. The shuttle landed at a military base, where a small group of officials awaited them. As the doors hissed open, warm air rushed in, carrying scents of earth, metal, and the unmistakable energy of a world filled with billions of lives. Cain led the way, his posture relaxed but alert. All right, Princess, time to meet the people. Silara stepped out, her golden royal robes catching the wind. She was the first Vexori royal to set foot on human soil, and the humans were watching her closely. First impressions. The base was alive with activity. Soldiers training, engineers working on vehicles, officers discussing strategies. Unlike the Dominion's military, which was rigid and formal, humans operated with a strange mix of discipline and casual confidence. Silara noticed the looks she was getting. Some were respectful, others curious, a few wary. Cain noticed too. Don't mind them. It's not every day an alien princess walks into our backyard. I would expect them to be more accustomed to outsiders by now, she remarked. Cain shrugged. They've seen aliens before. But you're royalty. And we don't really do royalty around here. Silara glanced at him. Then who leads you? Cain smirked. Depends on the country. But mostly, people choose their leaders. Silara frowned slightly. You allow commoners to rule. Yeah, sometimes they mess up. Sometimes they don't. But at least we get to decide who's in charge. Silara was silent for a moment. In the Dominion, rulers were chosen by birthright, their power unquestioned. Yet here, humans challenged authority, questioned leaders, and reshaped their own destinies. It was fascinating. A different kind of strength. Cain led Silara through the base, introducing her to various officers and soldiers. She quickly realized something else about humans. They did not fear her. Most species were cautious around Vexari nobility, choosing their words carefully. But humans, they spoke freely, some even making casual jokes in Cain's presence. One soldier, a tall woman with a scar across her cheek, grinned as she saluted. "So this is the famous Vexari warrior princess. Thought you'd be taller." Silara's eyes narrowed slightly. "You seem unafraid." The soldier smirked. "Should I be?" Before Silara could answer, Cain laughed. "Don't take it personally, princess. We're not big on bowing and scraping." Silara tilted her head. Respect, in human culture, was not given freely. It was earned. She was beginning to understand why the Dominion feared them. The City of Chaos. After the tour, Cain took Silara beyond the military base, into one of Earth's great cities. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. Metal towers stretched into the sky, flashing with neon lights. Streets buzzed with thousands of humans, speaking different languages, moving in unpredictable patterns. Vendors shouted, music played, machines roared. It should have been overwhelming. And yet it wasn't. Silara had expected chaos, but what she saw was balance within disorder. Every part of the city moved with its own rhythm, the living thing shaped by the people within it. Cain grinned at her reaction. "So, what do you think?" Silara took a slow breath. "It is alive." Cain nodded. "Yeah, that's Earth. Messy, loud, and stubborn as hell. But we wouldn't trade it for anything." Silara watched as humans rushed through the streets, arguing, laughing, creating, living. And for the first time, she realized something. The Dominion may have conquered many worlds, but they had never built anything like this. A new perspective. As the sun set over the city, Cain and Silara stood on a rooftop, overlooking the endless lights below. Silara turned to him. "I have spent my life believing the Dominion was the pinnacle of civilization, that we were meant to rule." Cain glanced at her. "And now?" She hesitated. "Now, I am not so sure." Cain smirked. "Careful, princess. That's a dangerous thought." Silara's eyes darkened slightly. "Perhaps, but maybe it is time someone had it." For the first time, she questioned everything she had been taught. And she knew, deep down, that the Dominion could never truly control a species like this, because humans were not meant to be ruled. And perhaps, neither was she. The night sky stretched over the human city, stars shining against the darkness. From the rooftop, Princess Silara could see the endless sea of lights below, millions of lives moving in unpredictable patterns, shaping the world around them with their own hands. She had spent her entire life believing that the Vexari Dominion was the pinnacle of civilization, that order, control, and hierarchy were the only ways to govern a species. But now, standing on Earth, she was not so sure anymore. Beside her, Sergeant Darius Cain leaned against the railing, his arms crossed as he studied her. "You look like someone who's about to make a big decision." Silara didn't look at him. "Perhaps I am." Cain chuckled. "Let me guess. You're thinking about what happens when you go back to your people." She exhaled softly. "The Dominion will never accept what I have seen here. They fear your kind. And now I understand why." Cain smirked. "Because we don't like being controlled." Silara turned to him, her violet eyes serious. "Because you are free." Cain's expression shifted slightly. He had expected her to say humans were dangerous, unpredictable, even reckless. But free? That was different. Silara continued, her voice thoughtful. "Humans are not stronger than us. You do not live as long as we do. You do not have the advanced technology that some species possess, and yet your people grow, adapt, and survive. She looked back at the city. No matter what stands in your way, you keep moving forward. And that is something the Dominion has never understood. Kane was silent for a moment, then shrugged. Well, you get knocked down enough times. You either learn to stand back up or you don't. Humanity just refuses to stay down. Silara felt a strange emotion stirring within her. Admiration, respect, and something even more dangerous, hope. The weight of responsibility. The next morning, Silara prepared to return to her royal vessel. Human officials had been respectful, though clearly wary of her presence. The Dominion and humanity were not at war, but they were not allies either. Tension filled every interaction. Kane walked with her toward the shuttle, his usual smirk replaced by something more thoughtful. So, what happens now, Princess? Silara hesitated. She had spent her whole life following the path set before her, obeying the Dominion, following its laws, maintaining its rule. But now, for the first time, she was questioning that path. She turned to Kane, her gaze steady. Tell me, Sergeant, if a leader knew their empire was wrong, that it was built on a false belief, what should they do? Kane studied her carefully. You already know the answer to that. Silara narrowed her eyes. You assume I have a choice. Kane chuckled. There's always a choice, Princess. Just depends on whether you're brave enough to take it. Silara felt something tighten in her chest. The Vexari way was absolute. To question it was dangerous. But after everything she had seen, everything she had learned, how could she go back and pretend nothing had changed? The first step toward change. As Silara stood at the entrance of her shuttle, she turned back to Kane. I will return to my people, but things will not remain the same. Kane raised an eyebrow. You gonna start a revolution? Silara smirked. Perhaps not yet, but I will not be silent. Kane's expression became serious. That's risky. Silara lifted her chin. Change is always risky, but I have seen the truth with my own eyes, and I will not forget it. She paused, then added, You were right, Sergeant. There is always a choice, and I am making mine. Kane nodded, a hint of respect in his gaze. Well then, Princess, I hope we meet again. Preferably not on opposite sides of a battlefield. Silara's smirk deepened. We shall see. With that, she turned and boarded the shuttle. The doors closed behind her, sealing her within the golden halls of the Dominion's power. But something had changed. She was no longer just a princess of the Vexari Dominion. She was a witness to something greater, and she would never be the same again.